Hi guys, I'm Ginny and this is the Big Sew Along, where you will find me each week sewing a different garment from beginning to end and hopefully inspiring you guys to sew along with me. If, however, I'm sewing garments that you're just not interested in or whatever, you just don't want to sew that one, I hope you'll join along anyways, because I think that we can learn a lot of new things that we can apply to different sewing projects, no matter what they are. So if that sounds like as much fun to you as it does to me, then please hit subscribe and follow along. I plan to release videos every Tuesday and Thursday. Okay guys, because this is my very first video and our first sew along, I've decided to do something really simple and easy, something that I know I can do without completely messing up on camera. But it's still a really cute pattern and a really fun pattern, and has a ton of options. So you can do a number of different necklines and sleeve lines. It's a t-shirt. It is called the Starstruck Side Tie Top, and it is by Pattern Emporium. I put a link to the pattern down below, and if I can find one, I will also put a picture up here somewhere, however they do that. I'll have to figure that out because, like I said, first video. Anyways, I'll put this right here for you for right now. That's what the top looks like. It's really cute. It is a jersey or a knit top, like a t-shirt top. It has, let's see, softly draped silhouette, front tie detail, no side seams, easy flattering fit, regular or tall hemline, which is really cool. I hardly ever see regular and tall. Banded or binding neckline finish, multiple sleeve options, 3 necklines. The neckline options are a high scoop, a low scoop, and a boat neck. The sleeve options are a long sleeve, a cuffed long sleeve, a 3/4 sleeve, a short sleeve, a sleeveless, a bishop sleeve with a regular or an extended cuff, and a fabulously feminine flounce, all of which are really, really cute. Today, I am going to be making, I wonder if you can see this, I'm going to be making the boat neck sleeveless. And that is because I have exactly 1 yard of this really amazing fabric that I got from an Etsy shop called Funky Fabrics. And I don't know if they still have this fabric, but I will link to their shop below so you guys can check them out also. But this, maybe you can see this right here. This is the version I'm going to be making right here. Let's see, just so you guys know, that I have exactly 1 yard of 60-inch fabric, and I think I am making a size, and their patterns, I'm a size 14, and I actually shortened my top by 1 inch because I'm only 5'3", and it's still a little bit short to fit the whole thing on, so my ties are going to be a little bit shorter than they normally would. I have made this pattern before, so I already know that the ties are plenty long, and I'm okay with that. But if you're taller than me, you're probably going to want 1.25 yards, and in fact for me, if I buy fabric for this again, which I undoubtedly will because it's super cute, I will also buy at least 1.25 yards. I mean, sometimes you can't get 1/4 yard, so get 1.5 yards, whatever. You're gonna need a little bit more than 1 yard is what I'm saying. So for the sizing options, their sizing, and for this pattern they only give you the upper bust measurement. Their sizes go from 77 centimeters to 114 centimeters bust. In inches, that's 30 1/4 inches to 45 inches. The seam allowances on this pattern are 3/8 of an inch. I am going to be sewing most of my seams. There are really only 3 actual seams, 2 shoulder seams and 1 center back seam. I'm going to be sewing those on my serger, although you don't need to use the serger if you don't want to, or if you don't have one, you can sew it on a regular sewing machine. For those 2 seams, you probably don't really even need to use a little zigzag or anything. You'll maybe want to stabilize your shoulder seams with a little elastic or something. I am not going to do that, even though I should, but I just don't happen to have the elastic right now. Maybe I do. If I have the elastic, I'll do it and I'll show you. I should have been more prepared, as usual. In addition to that, I am going to be doing the banded neckline and armholes, and then I'm going to use a twin needle for the stitching around those on my regular sewing machine, And for the hemline, I will be using, I think, just a regular jersey needle. And let's see here. If I have one, yeah. This is the needle I will be using for my neckline and arm line. Can you see that? It is a Schmetz stretch twin needle, size 4.0/75. And if I need my regular straight needle for, it would just be for the hem and for the opening where the ties are, I would be using this, which was a Schmetz jersey needle, size 80/12, which is what I use on almost all of my knits. All right, so let's go get started. Okay guys, so I don't think you're really gonna be able to see this whole pattern piece. Let me see if I can kind of pan over and get the whole thing. The whole pattern piece. You can see here on this end, my fabric is about 1 inch short. Anyways, it's one giant pattern piece. It has a slit on one side, and it says right here, if you want the tie to be on your right hand side, place the fabric right side up, and if you want it to be on the left hand side, place your fabric right side down. I think that's the only thing I need to say in terms of cutting. I will have, you can see how this takes up the entire yard. However, I will have a little extra on the end if I want to use that for my bands at the neck and the sleeves. But I also have this red rayon lycra jersey that I will probably use for those instead, because next video, which is going to be Thursday, we'll be making a pair of pants to go with this, also from Pattern Emporium, and I will link that pattern also down below so you guys have access to that before I actually start the video. And I think I'm going to use this to make those pants so it'll go together for like a really cute lounge outfit, since that's all I do these days is lounge. Okay, so that's it. I'm just going to cut this out and then I'll be back. Okay, guys, here we are with our top cut out. This is the center front. These are the center back, and they're your shoulder seams. First thing I'm going to do is sew my center back seam straight up like this, just like that, and then we'll be back. Okay guys, here's our top. I hope we can see that. There, that's better. Okay, it's upside down here and inside out. These are our shoulder seams. So the back is sewn and I just pressed it to one side. Now all we have to do is these shoulder seams, and I did find some elastic, clear elastic. In fact, I found a ton of it, so I don't know what I was thinking before. I am going to, like I said, I'm serging my seams. So I am going to, I think what I'm going to do is just baste this together first with the elastic, and then serge the edge, serge the seam afterwards, so that I don't have to worry about trying to keep this in place while I'm doing my serging. It doesn't matter which side. If you put this on the front or the back, you just want it to be sewn into the actual seam. All right, I'm going to go do that and we'll be back. Okay guys, that's our shoulder seams done. Does anybody else think this is the cutest fabric ever? I don't know if you guys can really appreciate it because it's almost exactly the same color as my table, but I love this fabric. Anyways, that's done. Our shoulder seams. You can see I have sewn my elastic right in there. I've sewn my shoulder seams together and I've pressed them to the back. And now, next up is our neck bands and our arm bands. And they're all three going to be done exactly the same way. This is actually the neck band, but you would do, like I said, they're all three the same way. So fold it in half lengthwise, right sides together, and sew your seam 3/8 of an inch from the edge. I like to press mine open, so you have like a tube that looks like this. Press it open like that so it lays flatter, and then you're going to fold it wrong sides together like that to make your band. Just make sure it's even all the way around and give it a good press. And when you've done that, it should look something like this. And then we are going to apply it to our top. So let me get the other two finished and I'll be back. Okay, here we go, guys. This is our shirt, obviously. I've turned it inside out, and I have quartered my sleeves. Now, there are markings on this sleeve. I'm not using those because I like my bindings and my sleeves to be exactly like 1/4 in each section. Sometimes designers or pattern companies will make them so it's off a little bit, so you get more stretch in some places, like around the curve, than on the straightaway. My problem with that is depending on what kind of knit you're using. You can see, like, if I stretch this, it's gonna get narrower. So in the parts where you're stretching it more, it's gonna look narrower on your armhole. So I want it to be stretched evenly all the way around. So that's why I just do mine in quarters. Some fabrics don't actually get narrower when you stretch them. And I think it's, I know it does. It has something to do with the way they're made. Like this one I don't think would, but it doesn't matter. Just to be safe, I always quarter mine. So this one has a notch at the center bottom where I stopped. This is the armhole, where I actually put a notch. And then if you fold it in half, you'll see that the top is not on the top seam. It's actually a little off of that. And then if you match those two, the bottom notch and the top notch, which is on here, is marked with a pin, you can see. And then, excuse me. Match up that edge all the way till you get to there, then that's another quarter. And then same thing on this side, so you have 4. You can do that exact same thing on your binding. And then we're going to put our, if I can figure out where it is. Okay, so here's the bottom where my seam is. That's gonna go at the underarm. And I'm gonna put this to the inside, like that. And so I'm putting the binding on the right side of the fabric. I'm gonna match up that underarm notch with my underarm seam on the band, and I'm gonna pin it there, and then I'm just gonna move around. I hope. Then these 2 pins will match up. Get rid of that. This is the top, and I have, for some reason, I actually put a little notch in my band. I did that when I was cutting. Anyways, so that's that. Gonna match up at that one that's just off of the top armhole seam. And then this is our last one. And if you feel like it's, that isn't enough pins for it to stay stable for you while you sew, you can always add a few more. You can see you're not gonna have to stretch it much to get it to fit in there. Just add a couple more. If you don't have super slippery fabric, you might not even need to do that. You'll probably just be fine with the 4 pins. So you're gonna do that exact same thing with the other armhole and with the neck line, and then I will meet you back at the sewing machine. Okay, so we had a little bit of a snafu with our video. It decided to record this entire section in slow motion, and I don't really know how to fix that, so we're just gonna do it again. Unfortunately, I've already done this, so I'm gonna redo it on a little sample. I have a tiny little sample sleeve here. It doesn't even match up, but it's just a sample, so it doesn't matter. So, all you're gonna do with that binding is sew it on, and then you're gonna wanna press it so that your seam allowance is flat against your fabric, just like this, flat this way. I usually leave mine inside out like this, so that I can sew it from the inside in a tube, and I'll show you that in just a minute. If you do not serge your seams, you may, because there are 3 layers of fabric here. There's your shirt fabric and 2 layers of binding, right? You may want to grade those seam allowances by about half of what they are, so that you don't have too much left over at the end that will roll over towards the binding and leave like a weirdo lump in your shirt. If you're grading them, if you're trimming them, you are probably going to want to grade them as well, and that means just that the fabric that lays against your shirt will be a tiny bit longer than the 2 layers of binding that will be laying against your skin, and that way it'll just lay a little bit smoother. We're going to do a double needle stitch here in a second, and that will keep everything laying pretty flat anyways, but just to be safe, I would definitely trim that. If you don't grade it, you're probably okay. Definitely trim it if you haven't used the serger. Okay, so now we will go back to the sewing machine. We're going to use the double needle for this, and if you haven't used a double needle before, I'm going to try to move this a little bit closer so you can see. I will show you how I do it on my machine, and hopefully that will be helpful. Just for threading it, for setting it up. You should have a little extra spool somewhere on your sewing machine. Sometimes it's back here, usually like on an older machine. Sometimes it's up here. Sometimes it's retractable. Sometimes it's something like this that is that just comes off altogether. Obviously mine comes off altogether. I don't have 2 spools of the of this red thread that we're using, so I have wound a separate bobbin, and I'm going to use that. I'm going to put this on here, put my separate bobbin on here, like that, and it'll go wherever your extra spool is, your spool holder. And then I'm just going to take both threads, the original thread and the supplemental thread, and thread my machine exactly as I would normally thread it, only with 2 threads together instead of just the 1. Now, when I get down here to the needle, you're going to want to put 1 thread, obviously, in each of your 2 needles. I don't know that it really matters which one goes in which needle, but I do know that you don't want these 2 threads to be all twisted up. So you might have to straighten those out a little bit, and then just put 1 in each needle. And then we'll go on from there, and I'll show you how we're going to do our top stitching. Okay, I'm going to attempt to do this one-handed because I'm trying to shoot this up close. But you can see here how I have this center line, the seam line, centered right between my 2 twin needles. I have set my stitch to a 3.0. I like my stitch on a top stitch to be a little bit bigger. And we're just gonna, this is the top of the outside of my shirt, and I have it in a circle like this, so you can see. Just gonna sew in a circle, just like this. Sorry, it's a little shaky because I'm holding it. Okay, and we're just gonna go just like that. And I can't really see what I'm doing while I'm videoing, but you get the idea. And we're gonna go all the way around, just like that. And then we're gonna make sure when we come around to the other end that our top stitching matches up at the end where we started at the beginning. And I am gonna do this like really fast here on this little sample piece so we can see how it looks when we match up at the end. Just, obviously you wanna go a little straighter than I am. The other thing is you can also put both of your twin needles on the shirt fabric over here if you want 2 layers of stitching to show, or you could use a different color of thread in each needle if you wanted to do something like that, which would also be really cool. And again, this doesn't match up because it's just a sample and we don't really care. What we do care about is that our stitches match up here where we started. So just be really careful when you go through to the end to make sure that they're matching up exactly. Do your back stitch just like once or twice is good. Snip it off. And now I will return you to our previously recorded video. Okay guys, so in fact I did that armhole 4 times because at the end of the day I decided that I didn't really like the way those 2 rows of stitching were looking on the fashion fabric here. So I did it again and I centered my seam on my presser foot so that 1 row of stitching was on the binding and 1 row of stitching is on the shirt, and I like that much better. However, if I was going to do that in the first place, I would have serged this seam together to begin with, because now I'm going to have to go back in and trim down the seam allowance, because you can see how it's rolling forward. It's just because there's too much. So I'm gonna have to trim that down around both arms and around the neck. But hey, sometimes you don't know if something's gonna work until you try it, and not that big of a deal. I actually think it's gonna be really cute. It's I need to trim that down and give it a good press, but I think those are gonna look nice. So here we are at the bottom. Our hem is the last thing we have to do. Yay! I'm almost to my first video, you guys. Okay, so you'll see at the top here, at the ties are both squared off at the bottom. The way they tell you to do it in the pattern, and the way I did it before, and the way I'm going to do it this time, is to hem this loop, the tie front first, then hem all the way around the back, and then after I've done that, just fold those squared off edges of the tie under and hem those. And all I'm going to do is, I have, you can see that I've serged my edges on this, and the only reason I did that, you don't need to do that, I do that just because it makes it fold over more easily. So I am going to press this to the back, all around the hem. Feels like my tension might be off there a little bit. There. I'm just going to press it all to the back, just like that. And then I'm going to stitch it down with that triple stretch stitch all the way around. I'm going to go around the back, up and down the loop, and then I'm going to do both of the tie ends. And then guess what? We're finished! And you'll be really excited when you're done. It's super cute. How many times have I said super cute? Okay, so I'm going to go do that, and then we will take a look at our finished top. Okay, guys, that's our top. Completely finished. I will say, when you go to hem this, when you go into this curve right here, you're gonna need to clip that hem allowance on the back side in order to get it to lay flat, and then you're finished. I love this top. I think it's ridiculously cute. I hope you guys had as much fun today as I did. And Thursday we're going to be doing the Urban Flare pants to go with this top as a little outfit. Of course, you can wear with something else. So I hope to see you guys then. If you enjoyed this video, please hit subscribe, and I hope to see you Thursday.